All right. Welcome to the Eddy Live Show, episode number 143. Susie Lee, how you doing?
Good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you. You look so nice today.
Thank you. I tried to clean up a little bit for the live stream here.
I appreciate you coming. Yeah, I'm excited to have you try the wing, the Korean wing. A little bit nervous as well. A little bit nervous, but we'll see. Yeah. We'll see how it goes. How it goes.
So do we start first with
No. We'll that's kind of in the middle because that's I think spicier than these two.
Right.
So if you eat that first, maybe these ones will have no taste.
Okay.
Possibly.
All right.
Yeah. So, how have you been?
Good. Very good.
Good, yeah. Okay.
Coming up to 2 years in Taiwan.
Okay.
And feeling very lucky that we have been able to experience life during a pandemic in Taiwan. So
not the worst place to be for a pandemic,
definitely,
right?
Definitely.
Okay. Good. How's the audio, man? All good? Yeah, perfect. Yes. Sorry, the audio's been buggy lately, so I'm like, okay, it's good. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
So so what brought me to Taiwan was
that's my first question. So you beat me to it. Let's go. Yeah.
So my background is I we can start from the very beginning, but
very beginning. Let's go. Yeah, we got time.
So Asian immigrant parents, right? I'm Korean American.
That's right.
I was born in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Which in fact does have Hershey Kisses.
I was going to ask. I was going to say, is that where Hershey's are from?
It is actually.
Is it really?
Yes,
okay,
it is.
that's cool.
So there's a chocolate factory there, and it will periodically smell like chocolate throughout the entire city.
Really? Do you get like factory tours and stuff, like Willy Wonka type
deal? They did.
No?
So
okay.
This was a while ago, but they used to give factory tours, but then
kids were falling in the chocolate river. It didn't happen anymore. Yeah.
So then what they did is they built this this kind of like amusement park thing where you could actually see how like chocolate was made from the very beginning to the very end. And so it was like this little ride, and that was really cool.
Oh, that's
And they also had an amusement park that I think is still around, and it's definitely considered a great top-notch amusement park.
What's the population of Hershey, Pennsylvania? I didn't even know Hershey was a thing, like a place.
Probably like a small town, I'd say.
20,000, 25,000? What's a small town for you?
Don't quote me on this, but let's say like 20 to 50-ish thousand.
Okay.
This is in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
But yeah, so I actually remember it smelling like chocolate. And
check the Hershey, Pennsylvania population. Oh, do you have the... Okay, yeah, cool. Now I'm curious now because I didn't know it, yeah.
And but then moved to North Dakota.
Okay.
And
is that far? My American geography is bad.
That's okay. Most American geography is actually pretty bad. So it's in the middle of the country.
Okay.
And right now, very red as a state, very conservative. But at the time, I think it was much more moderate.
Okay.
But one of very few Koreans living in North Dakota.
Okay. Wow. How was that growing up?
Well, I kind of feel like, Eddie, don't you feel like it's like similar to being like Mexican and like Canada?
For sure. But the thing is, for me, like, were there other Asians, or were there just you guys, or because usually for me, as like a Mexican Canadian who looks pretty white, everyone thought I was Portuguese because my hometown is very Portuguese, and then they just kind of lump in Portuguese or Latino. They just kind of lump this all in together.
Into what? Just all being
just being Portuguese.
Oh.
Or Spanish, because that's what it is, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, there weren't very many. Okay. There wasn't a lot of diversity. There was it's mostly German or Norwegian. There was an Air Force base, so then there would be Koreans that would be like the spouses of military.
Okay.
But not very many that was beyond that, and so we were pretty.
Air Force base, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so
Did you
actually,
watch Top Gun or no? The new one.
I watched the older one, but I didn't watch the new one yet.
Okay. It's really good. I was surprised. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of hype, and usually that's not good, but it was really good.
The second one.
Really good.
But I also feel like did we all just like decide we need to like live back in the like 1980s or something? Like the nostalgia seems really powerful.
I think that the nostalgia thing is they're targeting people they were like maybe younger or kids or whatever. Now they're like, well, it's like retro gaming.
Yeah.
They'd be like, let's remake this game because we know like 40-year-old people have money or whatever now. They're probably going to go. That's what I think, right? I don't know. Yeah.
But so I mean, basically, because there's an Air Force base, they always said, in the event of an attack, actually, North Dakota would be targeted, which was such a strange thing because the city that I lived in, city.
It's not like on the ocean or anything, right?
No,
it's like landlocked?
Literally totally landlocked. Like, in fact, it's right below Canada. So, Manitoba is right above.
Okay. Oh, Manitoba. Okay, I know Manitoba.
And but yeah, so grew up there, and then went to college on the East Coast, and was all set to go to medical school, and then veered. And this is where the story gets kind of bizarre and continues to get bizarre. So then. So then I decided not to go to medical school, to my parents' shock. And
both of your parents are Korean, right?
They are both Korean.
Okay.
Immigrants, they had moved in.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'd always said, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a doctor.
We got the doctor, yeah. The stereotype, right? Like, we got to have the doctor.
Well,
right?
for them it was like,
Doctor?
And this is like, I think a very, and maybe there's a lot of Asian families that, a lot of Asian kids that will relate to this, but, like in high school, I was like valedictorian, and we talked before about
of course, I know, but we
like education and stuff like this, but like, so it was like valedictorian, got accepted to Yale, like, my parents were like,
super smart,
like just, a touchdown, we're done, right?
Like, we got it.
And then, then, unfortunately, then like the dream started getting torn because I decided in Yale that I didn't want to go to medical school.
Okay.
And I said, no, I wanted to become a teacher. And so they said, okay, that's fine. So they thought, oh, you're going to teach like at a university.
They're like, you've got to be the like
it'd be fine.
tenure at Harvard or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And instead what I said is, no, I actually want to teach at an inner city public school in New York City.
Like you want to give back to maybe
the
kids that didn't have...
Well, first of all, I was tired of kind of education in general, and
Gotcha.
I kept talking about this ivory tower, and I said I just wanted to do something like on the ground.
Okay.
And so I said I feel like if you're going to be a teacher and have a real impact, then this is like a group that really would benefit from like having
as opposed to maybe the kids that maybe grew up like with some money and they're just like, whatever, teacher.
Well, so that was the thing is like when I was interviewing for teaching jobs, I actually interviewed from like very top private schools all the way down to like these other public schools.
Gotcha.
And that's when I kind of, it's like I didn't have the language for it, but I somehow knew. I was like, the kids at these private schools, which seems obvious, but when you're like a 22-year-old, it's just like a gut intuition where you're like, that those kids are going to be fine regardless of like whether or not they have good teachers or not, right?
Yeah, you're not going to make that impact maybe, right?
So I was like, but I ended up like there was an alternative school, so it was like not mainstream sort of New York public school education, but it was like an alternative program that was exclusively for Black and Hispanic kids.
Okay. Nice.
And so, it was
not nice. Okay.
It was great, except that what ended up happening, and like this wouldn't fly now, but at the time, the New York School Board said that you cannot have just an exclusively Black and Hispanic school, that it is in fact racist, and they had to hire non-Black and Hispanic teachers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, a very, very strange thing. And so I didn't realize this, but there was three or four of us.
Or Hispanic, so that's okay.
So we got hired.
Okay.
There's like 3 or 4 of us that got hired because of this. And then not knowing that was why we were hired. And so like I'm this like idealistic 20-something-year-old, right? I'm like, okay, I'm going to like change the world and everything. And then the hostility initially, because of course you didn't realize this, right? And only looking back are you like, the parents, the staff, right, the teachers, they all felt really betrayed, right, by this like decision because they had made this school that was really like from top down, right, like about pride and like, I mean, like nowadays everyone knows it's like they were looking up to teachers and like principals that looked like them, right?
Of course, yeah,
and
that makes sense. It's like he's kind of like me, maybe I could do that, right?
Totally, right? And it's like, you often find like these racial disparities where it's like, oh, you see some staff are Black or Hispanic, but then like the principal is still this white guy, right?
Yeah.
So like everyone just felt really betrayed by this, and we didn't realize this. And so
well,
when
you're
we first
22,
got it,
you're like, hey, I got a job.
I was like, I think it'll be great.
All right.
And then the person who was hiring me, the principal, didn't tell me that because obviously, like, that's not a great thing to be like, hey, we're hiring you because we need like non-brown bodies,
you to fill
right?
the kind of like maybe white or Asian quota, so you got it. I'm like, what? Yeah.
So anyway, so then like it was a really hard lesson to be like, okay, how do you build trust and win community? Like,
of course,
win them over in some ways, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was a really powerful experience because
how were the kids? I want to get that first wing, but I want you to know. I want to ask you how was the reaction of the kids?
At first they were because I was so young.
Okay,
they were quite entertained by that, right? Because they were like, "You look like us, right?" I was like Asian and 22, right? So I basically looked like a high school kid.
Sure. Yeah.
And then the other thing is they were like, "You're Korean," and I said yes. And then they said, Does your parents own the grocery store or the laundromat that's like on my corner? So remember, this is like pre-internet, right? This is like everyone's kind of like, they only understand their neighborhood and their local geography.
Sure,
and so for them, it's like they're like,
no Google Maps.
Like who do I know that's Korean? Oh, like it's like this laundromat, and so you're like, no. But but I understand why you would say that, right? Yeah. And so I'd be like, there's a lot of Koreans that own laundromats and these little delis, and so so you basically are like, you always open it up for a dialogue.
Sure.
So it was a really, in the end, it was like the kids were amazing and they were powerful and like emotional and didn't hold back, right? In this way that like,
I would imagine so. Okay.
Like, these were teenagers, right? So this was high school. And they just didn't have this like interest in being like, oh, I need to be like super cool and super indifferent. They were like, when they got mad, they got really mad about things, and when they were excited, they were super excited about things, right?
Okay.
And so it was, I don't know, I just found it a really like inspiring group of kids.
How long did you do that for?
So we did for 2 years, and then realized I could barely live on a teacher's salary in New York.
That is what I hear. That's what I hear. Yeah.
And then also there were things that I wanted to change, and they were like, oh, no, you can't do that, right? Like, school policy, you can't do that, right? Or like, school board policy, you can't do that. And so I'd say, well, that's kind of a dumb policy. And they're like, yes, but that's the way the policy is. So, and maybe the same as in like all schools around the world, but like the pace at which you wanted to innovate as like a young person.
Of course, you
were
like,
you
want to do it.
Oh my God, it's like this broken machinery, right? And I mean, now that I have a kid, I understand like, well, parents don't really want their kids to be the guinea pig of like some experiment, right? At the same, so they want to know like what works, right? And so what has worked in the past is what they want to have work in the future, right?
Yeah.
But when you recognize it from the inside that you're like, there are fundamental things that are broken because like these kids are not engaged by this material, or it's like not relevant to like what they want to do,
of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So like I remember in my student teaching days, again, like, so I'm like super, super young, right? And like these kids are like really excited, and they're like, who's this new young teacher, right?
Energy, what's going on? This is nice. Yeah,
and as a student teacher, you're supposed to just follow the syllabus, right?
Oh, yeah,
but the teacher that I had, that I was supposed to be shadowing, he didn't care. He was basically like, ooh, free teacher, you do the classroom, I'm out of here, right? And he would just like leave and go to the teacher's lounge. He wouldn't watch me or anything. He didn't care.
I've had teachers like that. Yeah.
So we were supposed to do like, I don't know, plant classification or something, right? So it was like I remember it's like the kids all looked at me with like this, like, who are you and what are you going to do, right? So they had this like all this hope and potential, right? And then I was like, okay, so we're going to do like your next chapter, which is on funguses. And then I remember seeing everybody's face drop.
They're like, oh my God, you're
just
one
the
of those.
Same old, right? Just younger exterior, but same old. So what I actually did, because like the teacher wasn't there, was I was like, so I just pivoted at that moment, and I'm like,
that's what good teachers do. You're like, you know what? We're gonna do something fun.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's like a performance almost, right? And you're like, I'm reading the audience, I'm not feeling it. So I said,
exactly.
Actually, you know what? Let's start with human anatomy first.
Okay.
And because it's your body, right? And it's like you're learning how things move and how things go together, and then we'll go backwards. And they were like, what, really? And I was like, yeah, go to the back of your textbook, all the way to the back, and let's start there. And they were like, oh, this is so cool. Exciting,
this
right?
Is cool. Something different, right? Yeah, good.
Yeah. So, and then from that, actually, I also remember there was one kid, and he was Hispanic.
Okay.
And I used to write little updates, like handwrite notes to each one of the kids, and I would be like, this is what I really liked about what you were doing the last couple of weeks. This is what I feel like you should improve on, but I'm really proud about blah, 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 right? And I remember, I think his name was Cesar or something. I don't Unfortunately, I don't
Caesar
remember that.
Cesar. Okay.
But so when I wrote his name, I wrote the accent right above the E, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And he told me, he said, and this has stuck with me ever since then. He's like, "You are the first teacher that actually remembered the accent on my name." And at the time, I was like, "Yeah, but that's your name, right?" So I'm like, "Of course I'm going to put that on." But he's like, "You're the only one that actually like noticed and paid attention to it."
Wow.
And from then, I'm like, these are the things, right?
Yeah,
These are the things that
true.
matter, right? And
It's
for this
really
like
true.
9th grade kid, this is what
Probably
he actually
still
like.
remembers you now.
Yeah, no,
Probably
I'm
still
super
remembers you
embarrassed
now.
because like now during this like live stream, I'm like, I don't remember the kid's name, but like I just remember the story.
No, But I think as a teacher, you're going to be meeting so many kids and affecting their lives in a positive way. There's so many that you're probably going to forget some, but they'll remember you.
But you'll remember like the
You'll remember
impression,
maybe
right?
faces
And you'll
and
remember
stuff,
the
yeah.
faces, and you'll kind of just remember that moment of being like, it was like a lesson for me, right? In terms of like the details matter, right?
Of course, I love it.
So,
I love it.
Yeah.
Let's grab the
Okay.
first swing.
All right.
So we got the drum and we've got the wing, and you pick
Okay.
one or the other, whatever you want.
All right.
Go drum, yeah.
Okay. And what kind is this?
This is buffalo. This is buffalo. It's just like super basic. Just like
Nothing at Eddy's is super basic. Come on.
well, we make our own buffalo sauce.
Exactly.
Right?
So tell me a little bit about it.
From scratch. So when we started, we made our own buffalo sauce we used sriracha in the beginning, and then
Wait, you know there's a short
shortage
supply
or
of-
something,
yeah.
right? Yeah. So, but this was way back. So we haven't used sriracha in years. So that was the first one, and then people were like, well, the real one is Frank's, and I'm like, so I went out, I found Frank's, did the research, did the testing. It's basically Frank's and butter. Okay, do that. Frank's is a bit salty. It's not. I don't think it's that good, but that's the real buffalo. So like, okay, let's do that.
Okay.
Apparently, I've never been to Buffalo, right?
Is this Buffalo, New York?
Well, I think so.
Is it?
I think so. It must be. I don't know.
Help
so
us, people.
So
Help us, people.
basic. Is it Buffalo, New York? I don't know. So basically, did that. It was a big seller. Everyone loved it. And then
This is delicious.
people were. Last year I think it was COVID. One of the last few years there was no more importing. Frank's was gone, and I'm like, okay, so what should we do? So I just decided, well, let me just make my own version of Frank's,
Oh, nice.
which is just like, vinegar and garlic and, some garlic powder, some seasoning, and fresh cayenne peppers, right? And then you make that, and then you do the butter thing. So we did that. Way more work, obviously. But then you had it, I'm like, oh, this is way better. So then when Frank's actually came back, I was like, oh, I think we'll probably just keep it this way, right? We're good. So this is the homemade one, yeah.
So this is like only 1-year-old recipe.
It is, yeah. It's a newish recipe, yeah.
Nice.
It's not a traditional
So far, so
Mexican
good.
recipe, yeah. So it's pretty basic, right? Should be good.
No,
yeah.
no. It's not basic.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like.
Well, I mean,
solid.
it's like I'm talking about spice-wise. It's like I would say 1 chili pepper. It's not 2.
Yeah, but now I'm kind
Probably like 1, 2, maybe 3-ish. This will be 3 or 4 depending.
Got it.
Then this one is I don't know.
See, now
Yeah.
I would say I'm going to slightly fail my Korean heritage of
Okay, I was
loving
gonna say.
spice because of my 4-year-old kid, because she can't yet eat spice. So what she eats, right? We eat together. So I've had to dial it down, and I'm just slowly trying to feed her spicy stuff just to get myself up. But
That's funny.
it's going to be slightly embarrassing today in terms of my
No, you're
tolerance.
good. You're
but
good. My when my wife was pregnant, we like spicy. We ate, of course, a lot of Mexican and a lot of Indian food. And my daughter loves Mexican, Indian, Thai.
From what
She
age?
loves it. From birth.
Yeah,
Probably 6 months, maybe.
What?
Like she would eat from age 2 or 3. Her favorite snack would be we fresh fry our chips here. So she'd take the chips, and it was probably your daughter's size or smaller. She would just take a chip, a raw diced onion, a little bit of green salsa, and be like, and one chip in that tiny hand, that'd be 6 bites. So she would sit there like the old, those old commercials where the little kid is just kind of doing his thing for hours, and she would take a chip and be like.
So a raw onion.
She still loves raw onions till this day. Loves raw onion. It's crazy.
Pretty cool.
And that's her snack of choice.
You should have been like, I'm so proud of this woman,
I was
right?
like, yes. She, like I said, Mexican, Indian, Thai. She does like Japanese as well. She likes Korean as well. We all love. I love Korean.
Restaurant kid.
Yeah.
Restaurant kid.
She is. Yeah. The problem is there was one time where I picked her up from kindergarten, and I'm like, how's school? And she's like, I'm hungry, we gotta eat. I'm like, didn't you eat lunch at school? And she's like, no, the food was awful. I said, and this is like probably your daughter's age, like a little kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what do you want to eat? And she's like, well, these are the choices. We can have enchiladas, or we can get a fish taco, or we can go get butter chicken, or we can go get American brisket. And I'm just like,
oh, okay.
These are the choices that I have? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, shoot. So
what'd you get?
Well, we get fish tacos are so easy for us. So that's her, like, her go-to thing, right? But if we're going to go out, we'll get like a butter chicken. And she'll just like, yeah, that's mine. And she's just like, and she eats it like a Mexican or like an Indian. And she'll take the naan and just like, and she'll just like.
And she can do it spicy too, right?
Yeah, spicy. Yeah.
Oh,
the only problem is she cannot eat nuts because she was allergic to nuts when she was younger, cashews. But it seems to be not so bad anymore. Yeah.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
Good. No problem on the first one, right?
No problem.
Okay, so let's keep going on this story, right?
Oh yeah.
So changing the world. You're 22 years old.
Decided
Mexican
to like.
kids and Cesar, right? He's just like, you changed my life. He probably still remembers you now. He's like, I remember that one teacher that actually gave a shit about my name. I remember her. Yeah, she was Asian.
Then also like,
Miss
sort
Lee.
of like felt, yeah, that's exactly what they called me. But they, so then unfortunately, moved away from teaching because it was like financially unsustainable and just like the progress was just too slow, right? And then you realize you're like, this is part of the problem, right? Is like, there's a lot of people, I think, who would be inspired by being a teacher, and then just like the roadblocks just make it like not possible for like really ambitious and motivated and energetic people to do stuff, right? So I had this crisis and was like, oh God, do I like go back like to apply to med school? So I did.
And your parents
and
were
then
yeah.
So then got accepted and was like, oh my gosh, my life is over. I don't really want to do this. Mm-hmm. So turned that down, went through another crisis and was like, I don't know what to do. So I was married at the time, and my partner was.
Okay, you didn't know that.
We met in college, and I was driving him absolutely crazy, right? Because it was like, now here's this like super ambitious, motivated person who's like, I have no idea what I'm going to do next. So he's like, why don't you take a ceramics class at the community center and just de-stress? And because he suggested it, I said no.
That sounds like my marriage, yeah. All right, okay.
But then a friend was like, hey, I'm going to take a class. Yeah, and I was like, sweet.
Great idea. Guess what, honey? Taking this class, it's fantastic.
Hey, but you know what? The messenger matters, right? Because like one is like kind of bossing, and the other one's like, hey, we're going to like do the same. It was a clay ceramic class, and
awesome. Like the movie Ghosts,
kind of, right? Totally like that.
Ghosts. You seen Ghosts?
No actual
Probably
ghosts,
not,
but
say what?
The movie Patrick Swayze Ghosts.
I'm too young.
Yeah,
he's too young for that.
I'm too young for that.
It'll come back. There'll be like a like
Patrick
Tom,
Swayze
like
Ghost.
the Top Gun Ghost thing. There'll probably be a remake.
Okay.
But I loved it, and like my partner was like, I've never seen you so excited about something and just really dive into something.
Love it.
And I could do it for hours, right? Because it was like, it's like you have this stuff, and then your hands are what changes it, right? Like you actually are molding this thing, right? So then he said, after like a year of me like totally getting into this, he's like, well, maybe you should do this, right? And I was like, what do you mean do this? And he's like, like do it. Try to go for it, right? Become like a ceramic artist. And I'm like, no, you can't do
Parents
that.
are not going to make it. Parents are going to freak out. They'll hate that. Yeah.
I was
can't
like,
make any money
I'm like, that's not a job, right? I don't know
Yeah.
what this is. And he's like, well, but then he said something that I will always give him like full credit for, which is he said, Susie, there are very few people in life who get to do what they love.
That's true.
He meant this in two ways, right? He meant this like as a privilege, right? That there are many people, obviously, in the world who are just worried about getting food on the table, and that passion. They don't know what that is, right?
Yeah.
But he was like, even of the people who might have the opportunity, they still don't know what they love to do, right? Or they don't know how to tap into a passion.
They go to like a Wall Street or something. They make big money and they're miserable, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when you're like, what do you want to do? What else do you do? They're like, I don't know. And so he's like, so then he said, it would be a tragedy if you don't try.
A tragedy?
That's what he said. He said it would be a tragedy if you don't try.
Tragedy,
right?
okay.
And
I like
so
it.
then when he
Sounds great, honestly.
when he reframed it as like
Tragedy.
almost like
It's tragic.
yeah, as
you
if
don't
like it
do
was
it.
like if you don't do it,
Yeah.
it's just like, you know, here's this life that could have been this thing and you didn't want to try, right?
I'm going to use that. My wife loves art, and I can't get her to go, and I'm going to say it's tragic. It's tragic. If you don't go back, it's tragic.
Right, yes.
Because I need that extra time.
Right.
I mean, you need the extra time. Tragic, yeah. Okay.
So I was like, all right.
Beautiful,
Then,
I love it.
it wasn't
Okay.
like, now it wasn't about like, oh, whether or not it was like a silly thing to do. It was more like, no, I should try it because
Why
this
not?
is what I was going to get a chance to try it. So I
Try
did.
everything. Yep.
Had never like taken like serious art classes or anything, but
Okay.
ended up going to grad school and got my master's in fine arts.
Whoa.
and,
okay. I always forget that you're like a super genius. Like, you're
well.
the super, like, yeah.
I mean, you needed. I needed something. I
Educated,
felt like I needed to be
everything, yeah.
legitimized somehow. But then,
That's yeah, I always forget. That's awesome. Yeah.
So one thing led to another. But I moved from like ceramics into like multimedia, like installations that were interactive, video, and this all the kind of stuff. And then when I graduated, I actually I ended up getting represented by a gallery. And
Okay.
that first like
In New
major
York?
work. This
No?
was
Where
in.
in
Oh,
New
this was
York?
now in Washington, Seattle,
Okay,
Washington.
okay,
Sorry, we
okay.
moved to
Sorry.
Seattle.
Well, I know where Seattle. Oh no.
Yeah, West
Seattle's
Coast.
like the one by Vancouver.
Yes,
right?
that's
Okay,
right.
okay, okay. All right, I know
So
a
yeah,
little
so I was
bit.
there.
I know a little
Went to the
bit.
University of Washington.
Seahawks.
Yes.
Seahawks. Okay, that's what I know. I know people from there. They're like, go Seahawks.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
It is.
Okay.
And
Starbucks.
then and then like sold out like this first work that I made and was
Really?
like, oh my gosh, yeah. And then like I showed work in Korea and then I showed work in Italy
Oh my
and I was
God,
like different
what?
museums were collecting it and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm making this as an artist, right?
All right.
And
all right.
like it was all great, right? And you'd think like, okay, Susie, like
You're done. You're
just
good.
you're fine, right? Just keep doing that thing, right? But as you
Got
can
the
tell,
art.
this like story does not end.
Okay.
Because
Did
I
you
don't know,
feel
maybe
like something's missing or what's that? Let's grab the next one and we'll keep going.
Oh, yeah.
Keep going,
Okay,
keep
so
going,
what's
keep
this
going.
one?
This is Chipotle. Yeah?
Okay.
Chipotle.
How does
So
this one work?
so just grab the drum or the wing, whatever you want.
This is the.
That's the drum. You want the drum or the wing?
I'm gonna do the drum again here.
Okay, yeah, whatever you want.
Wait. Although I keep giving you the wing.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Okay,
You
Chipotle.
eat
All
whatever
right,
you
so
want.
tell me about this.
I don't want to cut you off, so
Oh.
okay, let's put a pin in the art thing. Okay.
I'll keep a track of it. Don't worry.
Okay, because my
No
mind is
one
like,
leaves on my watch.
Perfect. All right. So, a chipotle is a smoked jalapeno, right? So the chipotle is made. We use a little bit of seasoning, a little bit of honey, so it's a little bit sweet.
It is sweeter.
It's a little bit spicy, a little bit, and it's a little bit smoky. So yeah, it's a pretty popular thing.
Do you
It's a pretty
smoke your
popular-
jalapenos yourself?
We don't. We run out of time. There's not enough time to do that. Yeah.
So you get the.
We get them. We get them canned. There was a guy who was smoking them himself. Got them from him for a while, but even he's like, that's like his one thing he has to do. And he's like, it's still too much work. And I'm like, yeah. So, yeah, but it's pretty good.
This
It's pretty
one's
good.
got a hint of sweet.
Yeah,
like
it's got a
sweet
little bit of
and
honey,
smoky.
a little bit of honey, smoky. Yeah. So that's it. That's the
is good.
chipotle. That's the chipotle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it should be a little bit spicier than the buffalo. Should be. The Korean is one where these two kind of switch. Sometimes the Korean is really spicy, sometimes not.
It's like there's that pepper that like every fifth one is hot, but like you don't know which one it is because on the outside
Well,
it
that's
looks
a
like.
lot of peppers, to be honest. You know, like sometimes when we do our Carolina Reapers, sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. And sometimes you're like, what happened? It's like a dud pepper or something.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's hope that that's maybe a dud, but it'll look like I'm really super
Ooh,
tough.
I
'cause
hope
I'll be all
not.
like, ha. So,
So I want to know about your art. So you're
yeah.
like,
So anyway, so I was like,
I'm the queen of the
it's
world,
like
selling
I'm
art in
doing this,
Italy
like-
and Korea.
Yeah, like it
and-
was like amazing,
All
right?
right,
And like, so then the problem is like,
I'm sorry, do
you
you want a
have
beer
this-
or something?
no, I'm okay,
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Thank you.
I had to offer. Okay.
but maybe later if I.
Okay, sure.
But so far, it's like I've got this, we're okay. But yeah, so I think the problem with the art world is like it's really made for the elite, right? And most museums, right, they open from Tuesday to Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., right? Maybe sometimes on
clue.
Sunday, but
Probably, yeah.
it was it just felt like a world that was super insular and catered to this audience that was like I couldn't imagine any of my kids from when I was teaching, being able to see the art I was ever making, right?
Was it profitable? I mean, if these elite people, they probably spend. I mean, I'm just curious. I know zero about art.
Yeah,
but I'm curious.
I mean,
I would imagine it would be, but I have no clue.
Yeah, like, you'd sell definitely pieces like thousands of dollars. Okay. Although, it's not like you would sell. I mean, the number of artists who could actually just fully make their work is like, again, just like the 1% of the 1%,
okay,
right?
Of course. That's
but still, I mean, you could still make a decent living, like supplementing with other stuff. So I was actually tutoring and then making art. But I don't know. There was just something about it that just felt like it wasn't accessible to enough people, right? Like, I went into teaching because I wanted to sort of open up the barriers or break down the barriers of like what people could do, right?
And this is almost the opposite. You're just like targeting the 1%ers. Yeah,
so it was like it addressed this like personal like a desire for expression and for like being able to make something that was like coming out of your idea. You're like something in your head and then would be out here, right? But it didn't address this other thing, which was like, but I don't want to be sort of like in a rich person's playground, right? And so
of course, I understand that, yeah.
So then I was like, but then you're kind of like, shut up, small voice, like it's fine, everything's great, like this is exactly what you wanted, right? Meanwhile at the time I got divorced because and he was a really good guy, right? Super solid guy. Okay. And like most people would be like, you are insane for having left him.
Was he Korean or was he like American dude?
He was Japanese American.
Okay.
Super smart guy. But the problem is like, because I had met him when I was like really insecure about my identity, maybe a little of that, right? But it was also because I was during this transition between medical school and like what else. So he was like super supportive of everything that I was doing in art, but also like a little bossy, right? He would be like, "Oh, Susie, like you need to do this, or you got to add more color, right?" And I'd be like, "Oh, good idea, right?" And so I would do these things.
Okay.
And then one time I changed something, right? Like, and he didn't know that, and so he was like, "Oh no, that doesn't look as good." And I was like, "Oh no, but I think it's better." And he's like, "No." And we got into this big fight, right?
And you're like, "Hey, I'm doing this, not you."
Well,
I'm the artist, man.
It's like, there's this deep insecurity that I had, though, because I was tough. Like, I don't feel legitimate as an artist, right, in some ways. And this was, like, before I even got to grad school and everything, right? And so it was, like, before I went to my MFA program, I just didn't think I could do it, right? And then he said, but Susie, like, no professional artist would ever show this because it doesn't look good, right? And, like, it devastated me, right?
That's cutting deep.
Yeah, right?
That's
it was
weird.
like,
that's a weird deep
But
cut.
it was like, but we were like arguing, right? So it was in the middle of an argument. And he knew, he kind of overstepped the boundary, right? But I got so mad. And so I destroyed that piece because I was just frustrated about And so it was actually a wake-up call for me because I'm like, I should have enough confidence in myself that even if we disagree about something, I shouldn't feel like my entire like rug was taken out from under me, right? And that's what it felt like. Like I felt like he just like looked in my soul and was like, "You're insecure about being an artist. Well, let me tell you, like,
let me tell you
something." So anyway, but he came back.
Okay.
And he like had brought flowers, and he was like, "I'm really sorry."
How's your reaction when he brought flowers? I'm curious.
I was
you like flowers, or you're just like, what am I supposed to do with this?
Well, we were just like really quiet at the time, right? Because it was like there was like some line that had been crossed, right? In terms of like
even saying sorry, you can't cross it. You can't take it back. It's
tough.
It
was, and it was more like it wasn't about being forgiven or not forgiven. It was just really more of a wake up call for me to say like.
This was age 22 or 23?
This was like
23?
Yeah, no, this was like 26, 27 or so.
Okay,
but but he was working at Microsoft, and I'd seen a lot of what they called Microsoft wives, and because their husbands had made all this money and making all this money, they weren't they were sort of just staying at home and kind of doing stuff, but like there was sort of this weird
housewifey stuff.
But there was also just like this. There seemed to be this like a little bit of insecurity about like how they fit into the world, right? And like they didn't have a lot of confidence.
Okay, the Microsoft wives.
And so you'd see this, and you were like, and I'd be like, I don't want to.
I'm not that. I'm a freaking artist and like a teacher, and okay.
So I actually told my ex. Well, so I told him, I said, I need to get a divorce, not because I don't love you.
Okay.
and not because I don't think you're a really great person.
Interesting.
But I need to. I was like, I cannot imagine a way in which I can actually believe that I can make my own mistakes and be okay if you're always sort of like right behind me. And
Okay.
so I said,
Wow.
I need to make this break, otherwise I will never know that I can make my own mistakes and fall completely flat on my face and still
Yeah.
get up myself.
Which is the best teacher in life, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Like
Yeah, I mean,
at some
yeah.
point you're kind of like, I don't want to fall anymore, but like, yeah.
Well,
And so,
we got COVID,
so-
restaurant COVID.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome.
But so then he was totally respectful of that and just said, I think this is really brave, and he was like, it's probably one of the best divorces ever, right? It was just like super
We're
supportive
both like, hey,
and like,
all right, cool.
yeah. And he actually was the one he supported me through grad school and like my MFA, so he actually paid for that. And then,
Wow, okay.
But it was true. It was like I made my own mistakes, and I made some terrible art, I made some terrible choices, right? But
Okay,
you were
okay.
like, still alive, still here, right?
That's the way to do it, right? You just kind of got to fail forward. I mean, if
Yeah.
you don't try, I was just having this conversation with Rushi. You just got to try stuff, right? You got to try it, and if there's 10 things, I'll probably try all 10, and you know what, 8 probably fail, and
Right,
you
right.
just try.
But you also got to try it like feeling like
you gotta
you
try it.
can do
Yeah,
it
do it.
yourself
Try
without
it out.
like always looking back behind your shoulder to be
Agree.
like, oh, am I okay doing this, right? And,
Agree. Yeah, for sure.
And so even with your kids, right? It's like, how
It's
do
tough
you
with
how do
kids,
you
yeah.
sort of negotiate that where you give them sort of this autonomy that they can make their choices even at a
Yeah.
super young age, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so with Hannah, it's always like, it's like almost like, okay, you're getting really close to that intersection, but
Yeah,
it's
you're
like,
like,
how close is it? Okay, right?
It's tough.
so-
Having a kid it's tough because you remember when you were a kid and you're like, I'm fine, leave me alone. But then you have your own kid and you're like, ugh. No, you're not. No, you're not going. No, no. Dad said no. It's not gonna happen. And everyone's like, oh, you know what? You should just send her to Canada for the better education, blah blah blah, from junior high on. And I'm like, no, she's not going. She's staying with Dad. And they're like, well, why? I'm like, because I said so. And she's
it's
staying
your
with her
dad,
dad.
yeah.
That's it. I'm like, it's my kid, man. I'm not gonna just send her off when she's 12.
I don't think she wants to, right?
Yeah, of course. No, she's a super, super daddy's girl. Yeah, she's super excited because this is her last week of school.
Yeah.
So we'll do some fun
There'll
stuff.
be some chill and some,
It's gonna be good.
some good times.
It's gonna be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, this restaurant is so close to the movie theater. So, her growing up, like we go to like almost every kids movie. That's like what we do. We just go to like we went to Lightyear yesterday or 2 days ago.
What's that?
We're like, hey, there's Lightyear starting in 30 minutes. Like, oh, restaurant's empty.
What's
Let's
Lightyear?
go. Buzz the new Buzz Lightyear movie.
What?
It was good. It was a bit weird because you know how people get nowadays. It's like political stuff. The Tim Allen's not Buzz Lightyear. Like the actual Buzz Lightyear voice guy is not Buzz Lightyear.
Oh.
The Captain America guy is Buzz Lightyear
Oh, why is that?
because Tim Allen did some political something. I don't know.
Oh.
I have no idea.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But I was like, why isn't it Tim Allen? And said, well, it's because he said this.
I see.
You're like, what? But it was still pretty good. Still
Okay.
pretty good movie.
Okay.
And for me I've got my little girl there. Probably since she was like your daughter's age, I would take her to almost every kids movie, and they're just like, wow, the screen's massive.
Yeah, they
and they're
love
just like,
it.
wow. So from that age till now, she's still like that. Like she's 10, but she's still like, whoa, and it's great.
Yeah.
Even if the movie has to be really bad for me to not enjoy it. But I mean, yeah, it's been pretty good. Everything's
We
been
went
good
to
so
see
far.
Soul last year.
Soul's
Hannah and I. So
great,
like Hannah
yeah.
was 3, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, oh my gosh, it's pandemic times. There's nowhere else in the U.S. right now that you can actually like go see a movie. I can go see a movie. Oh my gosh,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So we went to see the movie, and like luckily, it was like English with like Chinese subtitles. And I was like, you're 3, but I'm sure like it's gonna be fine. Like you're gonna generally get the gist. She totally understood what it was about.
Really?
Like yeah,
Wow.
she totally got it. And I
Wow.
was like, she's like, it's the one where it's like he dies, and there's like the after
like
time,
heaven.
and I was like, yeah, you're right. That's exactly what it's
It's
about.
crazy,
so,
right?
Yeah.
We got a couple of comments. Need to have a daddy-daughter episode. Yeah, maybe we've done
Joshua.
it before. But
Joshua says he's got
Josh, we've done that before, but maybe, yeah,
You
maybe
do.
this summer.
You do. Oh, you
Yeah,
could
we
do.
could-
We
I'll
could
do-
yeah.
I'll do another one.
We could
Yeah,
bring- we
yeah.
could bring them over. Anyways,
We could do it. That'd be good. Yeah.
So anyway, so decide at the time that I'm like, I want to do something that's more accessible. And at the time I was single. Because, you know, in the art world...
Best time to do stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and
sure.
So I was like, hey, how do people meet? Like, if you're... Because, you know, like, this is post-grad school.
Before Tinder and before all that crazy
stuff. Yeah, like, and
Tinder
had just started, right? So,
okay.
But I didn't know. So, first of all, you have to remember, like, this
I
is
missed
like...
all that stuff.
This is
Actually
way
had to have some
late.
kind of game to talk to somebody before Tinder.
So it was
It
like...
has to be after 2012.
Yeah, you had to have game before Tinder.
So this was...
Yeah, I don't know.
Wait, what year was this? So this was like 2010... Yeah, so this was like
Single.
2000... No,
Boom.
so this
You're
is
single.
2013. I didn't have a smartphone at this time. I still had a flip phone, right?
Flip phone, okay.
And so
Retro,
people are like,
retro.
what? I don't understand. But yeah, so I had a flip phone. And I was like, hey, how do people, like... I don't want to go to a bar and, like, dance. They're like, how do you meet people? And they're like, oh, they're apps, right? And I was
There's
like...
an app.
And okay,
Or in Taiwan, as in Taiwan, they would say APP.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it's an APP.
So
Right.
I was all like, what's an app?
Yeah.
What's an app? And like,
It's like all I have is
was
a
like,
snake game. That's
Yeah.
all I've got.
The snake, the old
exactly.
Nokia. Yeah, snake.
And I was like, people would be
Nokia.
like, my friends would be like,
App.
can you get a real phone so that I can send you this photo? Because I wouldn't be able to get photos, right? People would just send something,
It's like
and I was
some
like,
monochrome
it's like,
thing.
right?
Like, what is that? Nice.
So I was like, so I grabbed someone's phone, and I was like, wait, you can. And,
like a
and actually, it was
computer
a
in
gay
your
friend. It was a gay friend, and he
Okay.
had Grindr.
Okay.
And he was like,
Grindr, yeah, I've heard about that
and
one.
so I opened it up and I'm like, oh my god, right?
like-
I was like, you can tell who's like nearby you and like
That's
who
crazy,
these
right?
people
Yeah,
are, right?
yeah,
And it was like
yeah.
mind blown, right?
Of course,
And he was
yeah.
like, yeah, this is kind of how it works. And I was like,
You're
okay.
looking at your flip phone, like, why can't you do that?
So then I was like, so then I did this deep dive. I was like, okay. And then, but like as a single woman, you were like, oh, these are all gross, right? Like just like slimy. I mean, I was like, this is
There's
like
some
the
bad ones for
sleaziest
sure.
bar, right?
I can imagine, yeah.
So I was like, I know how to do this better. I know how to do this better. Like I just know how to do
Old
this
school
better.
way, yeah. Come on.
And so I
some
said, I
game,
told people,
right?
I said, I'm gonna design one of these little squares.
Okay.
And this little square is going to actually make better dating for women. And everyone's like, so then my friends were all like, oh, please do it. Oh my God, these are terrible, right? And I was like, I'm going to do this. And so my idea.
Like a women-specific app.
And
Beautiful.
so it was called Siren.
Siren,
And the premise
okay.
was basically, so assuming, like, again, this was like a heteronormative idea, but as a heteronormative woman, I was like,
Okay.
I know that if men sort of have a place to be charming and funny, I will find them more attractive, no matter how physically attractive they are in a picture, right?
Sure, of
I need
course,
to
of
see their
course.
personality, right?
You gotta have
And then I was
something,
also
yeah.
like, and as a woman, I also don't want my coworkers and other people that I'm not interested professionally in, like knowing that I'm dating, to know that I'm on a
Saw
dating
you
app,
on
right?
Tinder yesterday.
Right. Super
Yeah.
awkward. So, and then I said, so how do we start these conversations going, and how do we make people seem interesting? So I
Beautiful.
had a model,
Okay.
which was like a question of the day. And the question of the day would be sourced by like super creative people. So I had like poets and architects and painters and influencers or whatever,
Okay,
right? Like,
okay.
and they would create 7 questions. So it was like a week of questions. And you'd answer the question, and that's how you would show up on the dating app, right? It's like by the response. It was basically like a social feed, right?
Wow, okay.
And if you like the answer, then you'd be like, hey, this is cool. And women could, if they wanted to, blur their photos. So it was like,
That's
you
cool,
couldn't just
yeah.
like troll like for
You can
photos,
be like,
right?
no,
Yeah.
that's so bad.
And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
then if the guy was like, cool, then they accept the connection, then they could see the photos and like start messaging. And it was so great, right? Because then your profile wasn't like, hey, blah, 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 I'm
What's
a blah.
up?
It was an interview, right? Because it would be a question and your
Okay.
response,
Oh,
right?
that's
Another
cool.
question and then a response, right? So it was like you would look at these person's questions and you'd be like, oh, this is really great, right? And how people responded to those questions talked a lot about like who they were. So
That makes sense. Wow, that's like the intellectual version of
yeah,
of,
and that
like,
was
a
the thing.
social
You
media.
had to spell. You had to learn how to spell.
Yeah,
you knew
yeah,
how to
that's
like
right.
make a sentence. So it was like the bar was actually much higher than Tinder at that
Yeah,
point in
that
time.
makes sense. Okay. Okay.
And so like one of my favorite questions was by a writer friend of mine, and it was the question, where does rain sound best?
Where does rain sound best? Oh man, I bet I'd look dumb answering
Wait,
that.
come again?
I have
Sorry,
no
where?
idea.
Where
We
does
got a
rain
smart guy
sound
here.
best?
What's the answer?
Where does rain sound best for you?
In the forest.
In the forest.
Yes.
In the forest. Okay.
What forest? Which forest?
A very dense tropical forest. Do you know why?
Why?
No idea.
Because then the water will be dripping from layers of trees, and then you can also find shelter, but you can also enjoy the rain, and it smells actually good in a
See?
forest.
See how beautiful that is? Do you
Oh
see
my
that answer?
God.
It's a beautiful answer, right? Somebody would have been like, that is an
Wow,
awesome
they
answer.
would have been
right?
like, I like them.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You
So
just got yourself a date, man.
So like
Right.
you would see like so the thing is like what you would see as who responded is like the people who were your interest rate. So if you were like, oh, I'm looking for someone between 27 and 35, those are the answers that you would see, right?
Okay.
But they would be like these beautiful answers, right? So someone would be
Wow.
like, oh, like nestled in like on the couch, reading a book, right? Like
Oh, wow.
inside. And someone said like on a train in Peru, like blah, right? It was like it was
whoa.
amazing, right?
I'd have been like, oh.
Somebody still would have
No.
been like, your wife would have
You're
been
out.
like, that's okay.
She'd been like, that's all right.
Someone would be
tacos.
like, I'm from London, that's my everyday.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's true.
Yeah.
But so like people would like connect and they were like, so people
Wow.
like got married off of this
Okay.
thing.
Really?
And it was like,
oh,
yeah,
that's
it was
so
great,
amazing.
right?
That's amazing.
So,
And that's like that's a big award for you. That's huge. That's a
it was
huge
like,
plus.
I sort of
You're
joked. I'm like, as an artist, the number of people who are having sex because of the things
10%.
that I
There you
made
go.
was amazing, right? So
You're
I'm like,
contributing
this is
to the
great.
population here,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. All right. Okay.
So anyway, we
Beautiful.
had
I
done
love
it, but then unfortunately at the very end, an investor kind of screwed us over. Didn't have the money that they said they would
Oh,
have,
no.
and so we had to close. We had to close after 4 years. I put 4 years of my
What?
life into this.
Oh, no.
I put my own money in as an artist, right? So it was like I put a whole bunch of my money in, and like,
The starving artist is like, this is
but
the dream. We're gonna do it.
But we had made such an impact, so it was like we were
So I was
on.
gonna say, is it still around? It's not around
It's
because
not
the guy
around.
pulled the plug.
But at the
Oh,
time,
okay.
like this was pre-Bumble. This was like pre-Me Too, right? But so people were like, no, what are you talking about? Women don't have a different experience than men on the internet. And you're like, oh, well, you're a guy, really?
Oh, come on, you're a guy.
So,
even guys
that
know better.
idea these days would rock
I think it would still
because,
work now.
That's why Bumble works pretty well because so there's Tinder and
Yeah.
then there's Bumble. Bumble
Yeah.
is supposed to be a more mature version of Tinder where you still
Yeah.
meet people, but you meet in a way high value individuals, right?
Exactly.
Who have a life.
Right.
This
But Bumble is
concept-
still like,
Tinder.
well, both of them are still like
Swipe,
swiping,
swipe,
right?
left and
And
right.
so my antithesis of that was like, I kept saying, don't shop, like, where it's no shopping for humans. Let's not shop for humans was like my tagline. And then the idea was basically like it wasn't actually about the male gaze checking out women. I was like, that's not actually how you get good relationships, right? Like that's just creepy.
It should be like the description, and then if you like the description, you could be like, okay, well let's maybe see what this person
But
looks like.
fundamentally, and this is actually
That
what Bumble
makes
is the
sense.
case.
That's
It's
cool. I have
like
no
women,
idea.
they have to make the selection at some point, right? They have to actually
of course.
decide
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
right? So
I
I was
agree.
like, so the goal was actually how, again, heteronormative, how do you actually allow men to shine, like their personality,
Yeah.
so that women can actually make the selection and feel good about it, right?
I think that's great because I
And-
know a lot of dudes that are great guys.
Yeah.
Like just great guys, but they never get dates because they're just like they overthink it, or maybe they're not.
They
like
just
the
don't get to show their
super-
personality,
they have
right?
No, I don't know. Like maybe they're not the best. They're okay looking. Like maybe not.
But it's
maybe,
not about the looks. It's
But
not about
but
the
I know it
looks.
doesn't matter. But I'm saying that they have a hard time, and I'm like, you're such a nice guy. How's that
Yeah.
possible? And they're just like they don't have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
it's
funny.
for guys too. I know.
Also,
I know.
if you can
Yeah.
be funny, like that's
Yeah.
always a win. I'm
Funny's
like
good.
100% of the women I know, it's like if a guy is funny,
Funny.
you'll be like more credit to you, right? So yeah.
I
That's
think
tough
one way
because
to take off that problem is to not have pictures at all.
yeah, that might
Yes.
work. Yeah.
At all.
We
Or you got to free. The free app is no pictures, and you got to pay for the pictures.
See, that's a business
There you
plan.
go. That's
Yeah.
a business plan. Yeah.
'Cause
well,
then-
Let's go.
So,
Yeah.
so
If someone selects based on the answers, right? So I give an answer right now, and
Yeah.
someone liked it. So clearly there is a mutual
something
connection
going on,
there.
Yeah.
I'm
And
still trying
then
to
you
think of a
get
good
to-
answer.
Yeah, and then you get to meet in person so that you can feel the charm and personality
Right.
all at once. And if you don't like it, it's all right.
right. What we allowed was actually then both men and women could actually control their photo visibility because
good.
we were like, look, there's chemistry, right? And chemistry is something we can't
Of course,
promise, right? You got to
sure,
figure
that's
that out.
rough,
But
yeah. And that never goes away, which is tough. Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
But
so that's why I tell 'em I
so
don't
that
go out
actually our
very much.
business model,
Yeah.
which was like again super smart, because like all the investors would be like, oh, all your best people, like dating apps are not a good investment because all your best people, meaning most attractive people, would like leave after a while, right? And I'm like, no. So my business model was basically like we went to all the like restaurants and bars and like symphonies and museums, right? And we were like, look, you want a marketing budget? Give us like a Groupon like thing where you basically say 2 for 1, right? Because these are single people, right? Single people like to do stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, give us like your extra tickets to like the ballet, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And then when someone starts to make a connection, we will be like, here are the week's events that you can do in your place, and we have a deal, right? But I'm like, even if you start dating, why wouldn't you want those deals later, right?
Yeah, of
so
course,
it's
of
like,
course,
so
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
gonna stay on, you're gonna meet on Siren because of the connection, but then you'll
Okay.
stay on it for the deals, right?
Okay,
And I was
okay,
like,
yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's good.
and then because it's like questions of the day, I was like, oh, but then we had this
That's
model
really
where it's like you would be able to create a couple profile. So it was like you're not looking, right? But the two of you would be able to answer the question like in the morning and be
Okay.
like, how would you answer this question, right? It was just like a conversation starter or whatever. So,
That's
yeah.
really cool. I mean, I don't know much about
Yeah.
that, but that sounds like it would be still good now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I would think.
you were
Also, I
You're
mean,
single,
if you
you
think
guys
about it,
single, whatever.
how many stories that we have heard that the couple met on dating app? Like,
Oh, there's
if
so
out
many.
of 10, I would give 1 or 2 that they have met on a dating app and
Okay,
are still
oh.
together.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially if it's just pictures.
Because
and you're
actually,
like,
I was in
"Ooh."
the same market as well. I had a couple of ideas, and we were trying to pitch investors and whatnot. And then they had the same thing that you're basically killing your own people by connecting 2 people.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's a dating app. It's not a matrimonial site where the sole job is to bring you in for once, get
Yeah.
you married, and then you leave.
Right.
It's dating. It's dating gives you hope. Like
gotta-
the
you gotta pay-
psychology is
gotta
like
pay
it
the
gives
upgrade
it sells
fee for
hopes
the marriage,
basically.
you know?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
and there's still nothing like this out there. So I'm like, anyways.
good,
So
yeah.
it closed. And then I was like, oh, I don't feel so good, but it makes sense. You know, the dating app is like, you know, kind of, it closed and it was like my baby and everything, blah,
That's
blah, blah,
tough.
right?
Okay.
But I was like, oh, I don't feel so good. I'm like, I'm just really tired. It's fine, right? But I kept being tired, and then I just kept being tired, and I was like, my stomach wasn't feeling very good.
Okay.
So it turns out I was pregnant and didn't know.
Okay. So the dating apps work then, right? Okay.
No, I never
Oh, you
used my
didn't-
own
oh, you
dating
didn't
app
do it.
because you
Okay,
were like,
okay.
it's like fish in a barrel, right? It was like I can't do that. These are like my people, right?
Being
So-
like the owner of the dating app, would you be like scrolling through everybody, being like,
that's the thing is like you could
back-
see everybody's
back, like,
profile. So I was
back
like,
everything,
this
the
is
hidden
not cool.
pictures
You
and
know what's
everything.
funny? I would actually do that.
Dude, for sure, you'd be like, yeah. You're the king of the app, for sure. Yeah.
Well, I did the exact opposite. So
Wow.
you didn't touch any of them because you're like, those are like my children, right? Those are like
children.
my people, right?
Gotcha.
Anyways, so
That's
no,
funny.
so no, I had to get my knife sharpened, and that's who I am.
Well, wait, hold up, pause there for a sec. I want you to try the Korean.
Okay.
Let's try the Korean.
All right.
You can go drummer wing, whatever you want.
That's
You
one
can
of my favorite ones actually.
Korean one's so popular, but she's Korean, so it's like,
That's
so that's a little bit.
So tell
that's
me
like
what's
me
in
making
this.
butter chicken for you, man. So I'm gonna be nervous, right? Make sure you
Okay.
got a lot of sauce
So
on
tell
there.
me about
right?
this one then, the Korean one.
So the Korean, we used to have a guy who his family used to work. He used to own like a Korean place, and I was like, I love Korean wings. You know, I want to make some Korean style sauce, and he's just like, boom, 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 whips it up. I'm like, oh, this is good. And then I tweaked it out to be a little bit more spicier and heavier than I wanted, and it ended up being this. And the first day that we actually put it on the menu, we actually had like a group of like 6 or 8 Korean dudes show up, and they're like, "Oh, Korean," and I'm like, "Oh fuck, don't get the Korean, please." It's the first day, you know.
Really?
And they liked it. They got it, and they liked it, and they're like, "Oh, it's pretty good." We got a bunch of beer and a couple of Korean wings.
So you use gochujang. That's
Yes,
the main
yeah.
base here.
Yes.
So there's like a lot of talk about Korean chicken wings. People are like, "Oh, these are the best chicken wings in the world," right?
Because they have that soup, they have like some kind of a starch or something on the outside that keeps them crunchy forever. Not forever, but for
For a
longer.
long time.
Okay, so what's
But
the
there's
secret?
also there's a history, which is, this is what cooking is, right? Like sharing of cultures. And so even though there was chicken before, the story is that during the Korean War, the American GIs, specifically the black American GIs, right? Because there's
No
like,
way. Okay.
there's fried chicken, right? And black culture.
Okay.
We're like, hey, this is what, they shared basically the chicken wings thing. Then the Koreans like, oh, this is really good. And that's where they started
Really?
yeah.
Oh wow.
That's one of the stories of so there's a connection, right,
Audio's all
between
good, right? Yeah.
yeah.
black culture and Korean culture in
Wow.
these chicken wings. So,
Wow.
yeah.
I love Korean wings, and I didn't know that. That's so cool. Very good. How is it? I'm
good.
nervous there, all right?
The gochujang is like, it's such a unique taste, right? So
It's so good. I love that, yeah.
So even if you hadn't said these are Korean, I would have been like, dude, you use some Korean.
This is Korean,
like,
yeah.
Right. Where do you
So-
get the gochujang from?
We have a distributor. We went to a couple places and we had a distributor. They brought us a bunch of stuff. And he's like, well, I've got all this stuff. I'm like, I just need like these 3 things, dude. Yeah, but I mean, I can share if you need it. I remember you were saying you've made your own kimchi, or you make your own kimchi, which is how I would love to learn that. Put a comment
Kimchi
if you
has
guys
some
have-
of the highest probiotic concentrations.
Apparently
of all
kimchi and like sauerkraut are like the best things for your stomach, like ever. We used to have
If
this.
made properly. If made properly.
If it's made, yeah. I've had a customer who used to come to eat all the time. He was an American guy, and he traveled all the time. And he said that because of all the traveling and the time zones and dehydration and blah blah blah, you know, he could maybe get constipated or whatever, right? Because changing countries and changing foods and changing everything, he would always have a jar of kimchi with him wherever he went, and that would just like keep his like gut bacteria or whatever solid.
Oh, I totally
And
agree
it's just
with
like boom.
Yeah.
He's got kimchi everywhere. He'd come to my restaurant. He'd always have like kimchi there, and I'm like, what? And it was cool. I was like, why you bring kimchi wherever you go, dude? And he told me. And I did the research, and apparently kimchi and maybe sauerkraut are apparently.
that. This is not a straw.
It's
I
not a
remember
straw.
that.
Do you remember? We got to make the clip video, right? You're the only person that knows because you've seen it.
Yeah.
Everybody's like,
But why
yeah,
is it not a straw?
Because we're trying
Why?
to save trying to do the part to save the turtles. And
Right. Okay, that makes
You
sense.
know, it's
So
like,
you can
oh.
stir, but you can't. Yeah.
Save the turtles, not the chickens apparently, but the turtles were,
Turtles are cuter.
the turtles. Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. So it was okay. Passed kind of the test.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That's
Good.
Korean. It's Korean.
It's Korean enough. All right. For a Mexican restaurant. Okay,
funny, that
I'll take
one-
it.
That one, like, the spice hits later.
It's spicy
like-
though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
That's one
Definitely.
of my favorites because like it reminds me of eating rice cake in Korea.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The
Yeah,
one that's
that's
like the
just-
tube and then the
I
the
love
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
And the red sauce, so that sauce like reminds me of that.
It's
Yeah.
the funny thing is, 2 of our most popular things are the Korean wings, the Korean cauliflower wings as well, obviously,
Yeah.
and my mother-in-law, my wife is Hakka from Miaoli, and they do this like this pork, this like stewed pork,
Okay.
kongro, and I love it. We always put it on rice, and I got her to teach me, and we have a taco. We have this Hakka pork taco.
Yeah.
And it's just like skyrocketing in popularity. It's crazy. So
We'll
the
have to try
Korean
again.
wings and the Hakka taco are 2 of the best sellers
Yeah.
at the Mexican restaurant. So yeah, there you go.
Very normal.
Yeah, very normal. Yeah.
Good.
Good. So you had to get your knives sharpened.
Oh, that, yeah. So
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
So you
good,
know that.
good,
I
good.
mean, that almost sounds like the beginning of a porn movie. Is that right? You got to get your
Yeah.
knife sharpened, and then
There
you're
you
like,
go,
oh,
yeah,
hey,
yeah,
you're kind of
yeah,
cute,
yeah.
and you're not like 65 years old with missing teeth. So one thing led to another. Anyways, startup closed. Accidentally pregnant, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. So
She's
yeah.
so cute though. Oh, she's so cute. Yeah.
And I'd never planned on
girls are the
having kids.
cutest.
I didn't want to have kids.
And then
for
what's
some
the
odd
reason?
reason, I just, I don't know.
You had
It was
one.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I just
yeah.
felt like,
I know a lot of people that don't want to have kids,
Uh-huh.
or they planned on not having kids, and we were actually like, I love kids, and we were actually similar. Not saying like don't want, but if it doesn't happen, then it is what it is. But afterwards, it's like, oh my gosh, it's the best thing ever happened in my life.
Yeah.
I love it, especially
Well,
a little girl. That's
I
the
had
best
taken
thing.
like because I wasn't sure, like, my birth control was getting a little funny and everything,
Okay.
and so I was like, I took a fertility test, and they were like, oh, there's a 99% chance that you will not get pregnant at the time, and it was like earlier. This was like 3 years early, so I was
You're
like,
I
oh,
like
sweet.
those odds. All right.
And I was like, this is better than like
Birth
birth control.
control.
Great,
Let's
right?
go.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and then of course year after year, like no close calls, nothing, no problem at all. And so I'm like, woo, right? So then Hana's father, I was like, no, this is no problem at all. It's gonna be fine, right?
We're
And
good. We're good.
I was like, I was almost 45 years old. I was almost
Okay.
45 years old.
Okay.
Like had like this fertility test was like a few years
1%
early had been like
chance 3
less
years
than
ago.
1% 3 years ago, and I was
Okay.
like. So when I thought I had an ulcer, right? So I went to the hospital and I'm like, I don't feel really good. And they were like, okay, and I was like, I was like under a lot of stress. My startup just closed, so, I was like, it's probably an ulcer. And they're like, okay, we'll test for that.
It's probably an ulcer. I've had an ulcer. They suck, yeah. They suck. They
don't,
yeah.
apparently to me, I was like, they feel the same as like pregnancy.
An ulcer, a kid, 50-50.
And the thing is, like, I didn't have morning sickness. I just had like something that didn't feel right? So it was like, because like if you're not interested in having kids, like all you know about kids is like from the movies, right?
Yeah,
like that's
like,
it.
What? They come out, they're all clean, and they
listen. They couldn't, like all the tests were like, no, we don't have this problem, da da da. So then they were going to do a scope, and I was all ready to like have a scope test, right? And they're like, you know what, we should try one more thing. And I was like, what? And he's like, we should do a pregnancy test. And I was like, hey, this is that whole wasteful medicine thing. This is like, no, we don't need to do that. Like, it's not this, it's this, right? And they're like, well, it's just easy. Let's do that anyway,
like,
right?
Listen, we're going to do it. Relax.
So and I came back, and they're like, oh, it's positive. And I actually was like, no, you should do it over again.
Okay.
I said, no, I don't think so.
Okay, wow.
And then I came back, and she brought it to me. She brought both of them, and she was like, no, they are.
Positive.
And it was like a COVID test that you're like, it's not just pink, right? It's like super bright red, and you're like, right? And so I said, but I don't think so. I said, I think it's going to be fine. Maybe it was like a miscarriage earlier. Like, I think it's going to be fine, right? I don't think I'm pregnant. So then they did an ultrasound the next day, and they're like, nope.
Yes, you are. Okay,
and I was like,
see that little heartbeat? Tick, tick, tick. That's a kid.
There was like a heart. There was like not a heart, because there's no heart,
well,
right? But
whatever,
it was like the electrical
flickers
impulse.
and stuff, right?
Yeah.
I remember those days.
So, and now I have a 4.5-year-old daughter.
So cute, though. Yeah.
And totally changed my life. But I gotta say, man, those first couple of years are like.
They're definitely. I think the first couple months are like so crazy because the one of my guys, actually, one of my main staff in the kitchen, he's off for a month. They just had a baby, and I told him like the first month is like, I think it's every 2 hours the baby needs to eat, and it's just like you're like, I don't know how to say it in a polite way, but it's like the mom is just like. Almost, I don't want to say it, but it's like almost like a cow is just feeding this baby.
Oh yeah,
it's just like
it's just like every 2 hours. Yeah,
it's just like every 2 hours, every 2 hours, and it's like there's no sleep. It's crazy. It's just like every 2 hours you roll every 2 hours, and I was just like, wow, this is crazy.
You know what? When you have a kid, you realize like it really is like it. It should not be this hard if you were like raising kids in a village, right? Like it should not be this hard because just like think about how tired like parents are in the nuclear family or something, right? It's like.
Yeah.
If you think if we didn't have modern amenities and like modern medicine,
all
these parents would be dead. Basically, like saber-toothed tiger like comes through, it's like dead, right?
For
like
sure.
too exhausted, too weak, can't handle anything. I'm like, this is not supposed to be this difficult, right? It's supposed to be like there's a bunch of like lactating moms and there's a bunch of kids, right? And there's like grandmothers and aunts who all know how to do this shit, right? And then it's also like you're like for especially for a mom, okay. Let's say you in a village, right? This is my idea. It's like in a village, it's like not my idea, but this is like I imagine it to be like you don't even have to be that if you're not a great mom, right? If you're not you had the kid, it's like it's okay because in the village somebody would take care of the kid, right? There would be lots of people taking care. But like it has to be like that, right? Because it shouldn't be this hard, right?
It's tough. It's definitely tough. Yeah.
So
I think in Taiwan, I don't know about in Korean culture, but in Taiwan, usually. You have the baby, they take the 1 month off, the yuedzi, which is like they're just chilling for a month.
That's nice.
Is it in Korea? Do they have that, or is that just a Chinese-ish thing?
I'm not sure if they have it in Korea. They definitely do not have it in the U.S.
Oh, Canada,
definitely not.
They're like first week out there, grocery shopping and stuff with this 1 week old. But yeah, no, definitely. You have that, and then after like a month or 2 months or whatever it is, it's just that you give it to grandma. Grandma takes care of baby until she's like 5. You visit her on the weekend. And that's
really?
super duper common here. Yeah, super common. So when we had my daughter,
wait,
they're just like, they do that here. Yeah, they do that here. Maybe they don't do it they definitely don't do it in Canada or Mexico.
Wait, in Taipei?
In Taiwan, in Taipei.
Like Southern Taiwan?
No, they do it. They just kind of give the baby. They give the baby, okay. They kind of give the baby. It's just like, boop,
but
here, and you see the kid. The parents see the kids on the weekend or whatever. That's it. My in-laws, Aaliyah was their first grandchild, and they were just like, all right, we're taking baby.
And
I'm like, no, you're not. And I'm like, no, she's staying with me, right? She's like super duper daddy's girl, right? And so she's just like, no, I'm like, no, she's staying here. And so there was a couple of, maybe 1 month or 2 months when we were moving from one restaurant to another and everything was just a shambles. So then we're like, okay, she can stay there for that. And then after, I'm like, all right, picked her up. And she stayed with us ever since. And to be fair, it's both of us, me and my wife. So, and it's only one kid, so it's kind of like you take turns, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty awesome. Yeah, but they do that here for sure. They do that here. And then when my
and the reason for that is because
I think because both of the parents work, and I don't know, they just everyone just works, and then on the weekends they go see baby. And that's it. Yeah, they do that here.
Like
they do that here.
Nursing and everything. No. No.
They do breast pump with bottles. Breast pump and bottles. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hard. That's hard too.
I would imagine so. I have no idea. Obviously. Yeah. But we did that. It's weird. It's good in some things. I think the month-long break is great.
That sounds great at the end.
It's good right? Because. The mom's gone through some hell pushing that baby out.
Yeah.
So they need to just relax and just chill for a month. Sounds good.
I know. That sounds great. Yeah.
Like a month. There are even, I don't know. So there are these hotels, special hotels. I guess it must not be Korean. It must just be Chinese or Taiwanese or both. There's these special hotels. They're super expensive. But I think you can pay like $100,000 or something for like 2 weeks or something. Anyway, something ridiculous. But you go, and it's like a hotel for the mom, and the mom is like this VIP. If she gets like breakfast in bed, like all the food is cooked for her, and they have nurses 24/7, and they take baby, and baby's like in the nursery, and then when the baby needs food, you bring it in, the baby gets fed, they take her out, mom takes a nap, and it's like a month. So the mom comes out after a month like super full, like super recharged. Yeah. It's crazy. It's really cool.
Well, that means she basically gets to sleep anytime that she's not feeding the baby.
She sleeps the whole time. It's just sleeping apparently. Right. Yeah. So it's cool. It's pretty cool. First time I heard of it was kind of like, that's weird. But then when you have a baby, you're like, we didn't do it.
Sounds great.
So what we had was my mother-in-law moved into our house, and then she just kind of like cooked and hung out. Did the stuff with my wife. That's still
nice. Yeah.
That was nice until my mom came to visit. And that was, of course, amazing, too. I told my mom, come the second month, don't come the first month. And then, of course, she's like, what, you don't want me to come? I'm like, all right, come. So I don't know if you know, but Mexican family, probably, I would say a lot of the immigrant families, I don't know, maybe Indians like that. Mexican family, like the mom is like the power player. Like
she's the matriarch.
She's like, she's above dad. And
Encanto.
Yeah.
Right?
Encanto, exactly.
Yeah.
It's exactly it. Encanto, yeah. So, my wife is Haka from Miaoli. So, same thing. The Haka mom is like, she basically runs the show. And so, you have these two, like, women that are just like, they're like the queens of their world.
At the same time.
They come in at the same time.
Oh, intense.
And it's just like, they like each other for about a day. And then... It was rad. There were some bad times in there for sure. Because it's just like, man, my mom, and because I'm like my mom's son, and my mom would be like, just, the good thing was they can't speak each other's language. So that was good.
Oh, hey.
So I was translating, filtering out like so much that my mom was saying. There was for example, this one time, my mother-in-law cooked hot pot, right? And my mom is used to like big, like menudo and pozole and caldo de pollo, like big, heavy duty, like rich Mexican stews, right? And so she tries hot pot, and she's like, "This is shit." And I'm like, "Oh, she loves it. Thank you very much." Yeah. She's like, "No, just tell her this." And I'm like, "Tell her what, Mom? What am I going to tell her?" She's like, no. If you put a little bit of chicken powder in, put a little bit of she starts naming all the seasonings off that would make it better. Mexican soup, basically, right? She's like, if she did that, the soup would be the broth. If she boiled the bones, it would be much better.
Right.
And I'm like, she loved it. It's great. Thank you very much. She doesn't need any more because she's quite full from lunch, but Thank you
Although
very
she's
much.
probably right.
Yeah.
If she actually boiled
Of course.
the bones,
Yeah,
right?
of
That would
course,
be.
yeah. But I mean,
good.
it's just because usually the hot pot, there's not that much flavor, but the flavor's in like the sauce on the side, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like there's a lot of moments like that. The house where my mother-in-law was taking care of my wife and Aaliyah, super spotless. It was just like super spotless. So I'd come in and I coach soccer, take my shoes off, put them there, and I could hear my mother-in-law tell my wife like, hey, his shoes stink.
Yeah.
Tell him to put them in the hallway. And then my wife would be like, my mom says, your shoes. And she would say that right in front of my mom.
Yeah.
She's like, my mom said your shoes smell, so you need to put them in the hallway, right? And I'm like, I'm about to do it, and my mom's just like, stops me, and she's like, don't you fucking dare do that. And I'm like, Mom, just take it easy. She's like, if you put those in the hallway, I'm going to slap you in the fucking face. And I'm like, Mom, we're not allowed to slap people anymore, okay? Take it easy, And then she's like, okay, so I put them in the hallway. I'm like, take it easy. So my mom comes in the house with her shoes on, right?
Oh.
And she puts her shoes on the coffee table. She puts her feet up. My mother-in-law sees it. And my mom's like, say something. She just looks at her, just like glaring at her. And I'm like, Mom, you're not allowed to beat up my mother-in-law, okay? She's like, I'll do it. So my mom is like, she was crazy. So it was like this Mexican mom and this Hakka mom were just like, nope.
Right.
Nope.
Right.
Luckily, we were moving from one apartment to another.
Also with a newborn.
With a newborn. And my wife, who's like super stressed and like, ugh. And so we're luckily moving from one place to another. So we still had access to the other one for another month or so. So I'm like, Mom,
hey.
I think we're going to stay at the other one, So I called the company and I'm like, can we keep it for another month or so? And they're like, yeah. So okay, perfect. So my mom stayed there. Yeah. So it was kind of crazy.
Hey.
Crazy. Oh my gosh. Crazy. Good time, but a bit of a crazy time. Yeah.
It's like Asians in their shoes, right? Like,
yeah, of course.
Not even like
exactly.
in the perimeter, right?
Mexicans
even
are the
Hannah
same.
will be like,
yeah.
She'll be like, she'll watch something, and the first thing she will notice, she's like, but wait, why do they have their shoes in the bed? That's disgusting, right?
Yeah,
I'm
for
like,
sure. Which is true. It is true.
Right?
It is true. And Mexicans are the same. But it's just like my mom flies here and like she thinks her son's getting bullied. You know what I mean? I'm like, Mom, it's not a big deal. They know that I coach soccer. It's
and also,
fine.
your shoes probably did stink.
Of course they did. They still stink. And I don't even coach anymore. They're shoes. You're on the kitchen all day. They're going to smell, right? So it was crazy because my mom would just be like, don't you dare. I'm like, Mom, take it easy. We're not allowed to hit people, It's crazy. She's like, I'll do it. Like, you're not doing it.
Okay, so what's the next one here?
Ghost. Get that. One or the other. That
Ghost.
Is,
why is it called Ghost?
So this is made by a small company called Empress Hot Sauce.
Oh,
yeah,
I
Empress
remember.
Hot Sauce. Yeah, Empress Hot Sauce.
Yes, yep.
They're good. So this is their ghost pepper. It's not super spicy. It's really nicely balanced. It's good stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a jump from anything
this
to
one?
this is a jump.
Okay.
So this is good. Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it. Yeah.
Gonna die.
Yeah, do your thing. Yeah. So yeah, moms. Yeah, it's a tough one. So be like, how does she like the hot
you guys
pot?
were talking about like matriarchy and patriarchy.
Crazy, yeah.
For us, it's like two-faced. It's very stupid, but it is what it is. As soon as you step inside the door, it's moms who take the lead. Like moms can tell the dads like, don't sit on the couch and not give a reason. And dads would be like, they would be angry, but they'd be like,
all right,
whatever.
Because they don't want to deal
and
with
they
it.
should
They're
walk
like,
away.
Oh, man.
But as soon as everyone steps out of the house, dad will be like, don't walk from here, walk from here. Be like, that's stupid, but then they have to do that way.
They do it too.
So it's balanced in a way.
Okay.
But I mean, that doesn't mean that if, let's say, if the mom is more experienced in the outer world than the dad, then the mom takes that lead.
Right.
So basically, whatever you're good at is where you take the lead.
Right.
At least for us.
Is there any change with younger generations?
Yeah, it is actually. So this thing you would see, like my parents, yes, they have it. So at my house, mom says everything inside and dad dictates everything outside. But when it comes to us, or even younger generation, older than me, literally actually no one cares, because to be honest, most of the cultures, even in India, is getting more Western now.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense. Yeah,
it's
people like,
becoming
who
more
cares?
equal, because like previously, prior to like 2005, 2000s, not a lot of women used to work back home.
Okay.
But now after 2000, 2005, like everyone's pretty much working, right? So there's pretty much like why you would have more power than me, or me to you. So it's pretty much equal now. It's very Western at this point, to be honest, at least in the major cities.
I think that's good for certain things, right? It's like
It is.
Like I know that people that the wife has like this super high paying, incredible job, and dad's stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then and then some people are like, what, stay-at-home dad? I'm like, that's not bad. That sounds good. You know, if she's killing it,
Right.
let
Why
her
not?
do it.
Job,
Yeah,
yeah.
she's
Yeah.
making money. She likes it. Yeah, you stay home and you whatever, right? You take
Right.
care of the kids.
I remember like
It's great. Yeah.
also like my parents' generation, right? It's like my dad or like my dad's generation. They would just sit there, and if they had finished all their rice, then the wife was supposed to just know and get up and like
Okay.
get the rice, right?
Yeah,
but
the
the
old
rice
school.
is not like it's like right just there, right?
Yeah.
But they would just wait, right? And I remember, and it's not like my mom was like, oh, you know, I would just think like, Dad, get up and get your own rice,
Your ass
right?
to do it, Poppy. What are you doing? Yeah.
And he was just like thrown off. It was like, no. And then my mom was like, no, it's okay. And I was like, why is it okay? It's not okay. Like,
Doesn't
go
make
get your
sense.
rice,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I remember being in Mexico as a kid once, and Grandma was cooking for like 10 dudes, and I mean she was already old, and she was kind of like hobbling around and stuff, and she was picking up everybody's plate, and they were just kind of like, and I'm like, Grandma, you need some help? And she's just like, no, and you're a boy, you're not supposed to do that. I'm like, that's fine. I start picking it up, and I'm picking up everything, putting it in the sink, and all the men are just like laughing. They're like, what's wrong with you? Are you gay? And I'm like, what's gay? Me helping? Or are you making like an 80-year-old
Yeah.
wipe your ass for you? Like, what's the matter with you?
Right.
You got no self-respect? What's wrong with you? And they're just like, Well, that's Mexico.
Logical reasoning?
Yeah,
What
they're
is
just,
that?
They're just like, what? I'm like, what's the matter with you? Grandma can't even walk properly.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they're just like, huh?
Right.
And I'm like, what's wrong with you? Yeah.
I mean,
Crazy.
internet took a lot of things from us, but one thing it gave is like critical thinking and logical reasoning. At least that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like the ability to question, right? And be
Yeah.
like, why? Why is this that? Why this way?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's just like, well, what's the matter with helping
Yeah.
your grandma, like your old grandma? And my grandma, I think she had, I'm going to say 10 or 12 kids. Like, it was like the old generation where it's
Right.
like they got an army of kids. And it's like, yeah, I think she did her part, so you can help her pick up the dishes. And,
Right.
and they're just like, why would I do that? And you're like,
also, it's just like I always
It's
felt
crazy.
like then my mom, if there was ever other people, it's like she would never be able to enjoy her own meal, right? It was
Never,
always
yeah,
like,
of
what are the
course.
kids eating? Make sure they cut the what is the good with the dad? And you're just like, Mom, just sit down and like eat. And
Yeah.
she would tell the story. So I don't know if it's a just Korean exclusive story, but she said there was a story where like they would eat a fish as a family, and the mom would just eat the eyeballs or something, right?
Okay,
and
yeah,
like.
yeah.
So when the kids became successful, because of course it's Korean stories, so the kids are successful now, and then when they made a fish for their mom, they gave her the eyeballs, but the eyeballs are like considered like sort of a junky part, right?
Okay,
And
yeah,
so she
yeah.
was like kind of hurt and insulted by this,
That
right?
they would give the eyeballs?
But
Okay.
the kids didn't realize, and they're like, "But Mom, we thought you liked the eyeballs because that's the part that you always took, right?"
Yeah,
and
yeah,
she's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"No, I always took it because it's the part that no one else would eat, right?"
Okay,
And so
okay.
it was just a parable about like misunderstanding of like what the kids thought that the mom was like, and the mom saying no, it was all about
it was
like
just giving you the good
sacrifice
stuff
and
and, I mean, okay.
yeah. And there's like I don't know, I feel like I'm very aware as like a solo parent here in Taiwan that of a daughter that I'm like so many stories involve the mother being dead, right?
What?
Especially
Okay,
kids,
yeah, okay,
right?
okay, okay.
Like just
Well,
think
so-
about it. Like
Oh, okay.
there's
A lot of movies recently that we watch. She's like, how come? She asked me, how come always the dad or the mom's dead? I'm like, I don't know. I
Yeah,
gotta ask the
in
guy who
order to
wrote
be
the
like an
script. Yeah.
independent, right? It's
Yeah,
like I
somebody's
feel
dead.
like you have to have someone's dead, but it's almost most of the time it's usually the mom, right? The mom is gone, right?
Mom's
and it's
gone.
like, and so you have like father with a daughter or father with a son or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, this is sort of problematic. But I also know, like, historically, moms used to die, right, because of childbirth.
Because of childbirth. Yeah.
But also, it's like, there's something about that. I think there's something about, like, but if mom is there, then the story can't continue in the way that you want to sort of, like, have it develop, because mom is going to be watching over you, right? So it's like...
she could be nagging the hell out of you. No, it's funny because...
But it's like, I find it really bothersome. I'm like...
That's weird. That is weird. My daughter asked me that recently.
I just noticed that. It's like, why are they always dead?
Yeah. My daughter asked me that recently. She's like, how come a mom or the dad's always dead? And I'm like, and it's usually the mom, because it's entertaining to watch the dad struggle, apparently, as should try to be a mom and a dad in movies. Right. I don't know. And it's always... we just watched one called Fatherhood with... what's his name? It's the completely wrong name. I can't remember his name. The actor, super funny guy. Oh, man, I can't remember.
Fatherhood? Is that Steve Martin?
Fatherhood. No. It's brand new. It's with Chris Hart.
Okay.
Like the really short dude, right? Yeah.
Chris Hart? Kevin Hart?
Kevin Hart.
Kevin
there you
Hart.
go. Kevin
Kevin
Hart.
Hart.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently. So, Kevin, anyway, he's super good. I like him. He's really funny. And there's a new one called Fatherhood on Netflix. And, the wife dies right at the beginning at childbirth. And it's just like the whole movie is him struggling to be like a mom and a dad, and the grandparents pulling it. That was pretty good. But it's always... My daughter asked me, she's like, why? How come mom's got to die all the time? I'm like...
Yeah.
I don't know.
I find
it's more entertaining, apparently, if mom dies. I don't know.
It's a trope, right? Just be like, mom is... You don't even know why the mom died, but the mom's gone,
Mom's
right?
gone. She's
so then,
gone.
like, the kid can do whatever they need to do to do things. So, anyways.
Crazy, yeah.
So second startup. That's what brought me to Taiwan, finally. So that's
that's it. All right.
Yep.
That was the longest intro ever, yeah. What brought you to Taiwan? All right, we made it all the way through. Second start. Okay, and I'm curious, why Taiwan over somewhere like Korea? Because Korea, you have connection. You probably have family there still, maybe. Possibly, maybe not.
Not strong connections.
But here, there's nothing. There was nothing. There's nothing. Yeah.
I didn't speak Chinese.
Didn't speak Chinese. Okay.
I didn't speak Chinese.
What about
I'd
Korean?
never been.
You have some Korean and a little bit.
I know the Korean.
It'd be easier than Chinese for you.
Probably,
right? Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
But then the Korean I know is like when a mom scolds you, like I know that Korean.
You're getting in trouble.
Like,
When my mom gets pissed, it's always in Spanish.
I can understand that part.
When my mother-in-law wants to talk smack about me to my wife, it's in Hakka for sure. Always. Yeah, always. Because I speak Chinese.
Right.
So they're just like, they'll be like in Chinese, like, and all of a sudden it flips to Hakka. And I'm like,
you're like, I know you're talking about me.
Okay,
yeah.
Here we go.
But so my co-founder was here already, and he.
Okay.
I mean, but we were like looking at different places, and it just was like I felt like Korea was more expensive and too stressful in a lot of ways.
Okay.
And
really?
there was a lot of
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and in fact, my cousin. I mean, he was older than me, but my mom's brother's son basically collapsed right from overwork and died. And
that I think is a common thing in Korea and Japan.
Yeah.
I don't want to lump them together, but
and
I've heard
also
similar
like
things.
If you're Korean American but you're not Korean, right? And you don't know how to speak the language, right?
Okay.
Constantly I would just be like, they'd be like,
you're not a real one.
It's like that's such a shame. Why don't you know Korean? And you're too big, and why are you
fat and blah blah blah.
So I was
Korean,
I don't want to do that. I want to do it. So
gotcha.
And then I didn't know anything about Taiwan, but I looked up Taiwan's gun laws, and I was like, good. Yep.
No guns,
and no guns.
Nice people. Tropical
really nice
islands.
people, yes, and all of that,
No
and
snow.
and so I have to say, like, we're here, and it's affordable. The healthcare is really great, and of course, coming from America, right, where it's like
I didn't even know it was so
holy
bad.
mess. Oh no, it's terrible.
I didn't know it was so bad
until
because Canada's great, and then when I came here, I'm like, oh, this is even better, cool. And then I have my American friends. They're like, getting stitches is like $5,000. I'm like,
$6,000 for an ambulance before they've diagnosed you.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Basically, you only do something if you're like, I'm in crisis mode, right? Like if you're about to die, then of course you do it, and then it's super expensive. But like
you pay it for the rest of your life.
You can't see specialists for like a few months, right? Everything is like billed in these weird things, and so you could like say, I went to a physical therapist, and like 3 months later you get a bill, and you have no idea what it's for, and it'll be like $972, and you're like, what? And like there's that, and just like the fact that I was like, I would tell my friends in the U.S. and I'm like, I had some kind of carpal tunnel issue.
Okay.
I just walked into a physical therapist's office, got seen, And
You're talking
then
about back home or here? You tell
here,
me
here.
Yeah, sure.
And then like they did like some electrical STEM stuff and blah blah blah. And then later in the afternoon, I'm like, no. It was like, it was $10.
Yeah,
and then,
that's awesome.
And
Yeah,
then
I love that.
And then I was like, oh, but I want to make sure that the pain goes away. So then later in the afternoon, I went to an acupuncturist, right, and the cupping person. And I was like, in 2 days, it was gone.
Yeah, that's the best.
Gone, right? It was like, and I was like, total, I think I spent $25 to fix this, and everybody's jaws just like dropped. They're like, what? Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that's what happens here. So
do you remember the old TV show Seinfeld? I don't know if you ever watched that.
Yeah.
There's this one scene where George Costanza, someone recommends a specialist, and he goes in, and the specialist looks at him for like 2 seconds, right? And then it's like $100 or something, or $200 or something.
Yeah.
And then he tells Jerry, he's like, I got this bill for $200, right? And he's like, I'm not paying it. And he's like, well, you got to pay it. It's the doctor. You got to pay it. And he's like, what am I seeing Sinatra in there? You know, he's just like $200 to go see the doctor. He's like, well, it's not, what am I seeing Sinatra? So it was so funny when I saw that. It was crazy.
That was like also like in the 90s, right? Like imagine it now,
it was probably
right?
now like $500 or
$800,
800, who knows?
So and then, my kid, like after about 4 or 5 months, she started speaking Chinese, and now her Chinese is like she can just flip, right? So it's like if someone's speaking Chinese,
kids are amazing,
and like the kind of things that we can do here, right? She's doing, so she started like at 2 or 3, right? It was like ballet lessons and swimming lessons, and now it's like gymnastics lessons and like all these things, and it's just like she loves them all, so it's just great.
That's
and
great.
it's affordable.
I love that. I love it.
So
I think it's fantastic. Right. I think let's quickly go. We'll go rapid fire through some pictures that I found.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just go through. So let's start.
What pictures are there? Oh gosh.
I don't know.
There we go.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh
Come
yeah.
on. That's a good one.
That was so that was pretty soon after we came and arrived, and I saw the Chiang Kai-shek Memorial, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's very nice. Yeah.
Poor kid had to walk all over the place, so she
yeah, it's okay. They got the energy.
Oh,
that's a good one. That's a good one.
This is so from Siren, I was actually part of a PBS, which is the public broadcasting station.
I know about PBS. Yeah,
I was part of a program there that they featured that startup actually for this. So they came in and did a interview and filming, and Siren was like, it was on CNN. It was on the front page of the Seattle Times. It was like the front page of the University of Washington Herald. It was like it went. We had like 200 publications that were like featuring what we were doing, and so this was one of those. Yeah.
Okay. I love that. That's beautiful, and that's one of the interviews. Okay, perfect. Love it.
Yeah. These are friends in Seattle.
Okay.
So the funny story is the guy in the blue.
por estar ocupado, yeah. Muchas gracias, Adiós, cuídate, yeah.
So he is now happily married to another friend, and they met each other on Siren.
Okay.
But at the time, he was one of our early beta testers, and he's like a very charming.
Dude, I would have loved to have been a beta tester.
Oh, so he
great.
was like single. I mean, like attractive guy, right? But also like
he's like, I'm picking.
He's New Zealander, right? So like
so
charming
he's got a cool
accent,
accent.
everything.
Yeah.
And so I was like, just go on dates and just see what you think. So he was like, and he was having the time of his life. So he literally was like. I would see him and I was like, so how's it going? And he's like, it's great. He's like, but I'm so tired, because he would literally have 3 dates in a row.
Oh man.
Like not in a row, but like it would be like there'd be one in the breakfast time, and then there'd be one lunch, and I was like, you have to make sure they don't like cross each other's paths. And he's like, no. And he was always like really respectful. And he's like, look, I'm dating a few women and and they were totally fine, but like he was killing it on that app, right? So yeah.
That's good times.
Yeah,
That's good times
he,
for sure.
He met his who was a friend also. He met her on Siren,
This
and now
guy
they
has
are married.
like the best out for like a bad date. He'd be like, I'm just beta testing for the app,
Right.
I'll let you know what's up,
Right.
and just like and then if he's like, it's like, hey, we should do this again. It's either like, it's gonna.
And
call
all
it,
I was basically, I was like,
I'm a beta
I was
tester.
like, is it functional? Are you guys meeting? Is it messaging? Right? And he was like, yeah, it's great. Like I'm meeting all these beautiful women and everything. He met, and because like the women's like profile photos were blurred, right? I wouldn't be able to see them even as the admin, but so he's like, oh yeah, like last night I went out with Miss Belize, so one of the like pageant, the whatever,
Okay,
the,
pageant,
whatever.
Miss Belize. Okay.
Miss Universe pageant,
Universe,
right?
Miss
Miss Belize
Belize,
was
Miss
apparently
World.
in Seattle, and he went on a date with her, and I was like, what?
Okay, beautiful. Wow, I love
so,
it.
Yeah.
And he had a good time. His big smile on his face.
Yeah.
There we go. That's a cooking
so
class or
you
something,
know
right?
who
Yeah.
these are. So there's
I do.
Francesca, who's
I know Francesca,
on,
of course,
and
yeah.
Atina, who is from Seattle. And then
This
there's-
is here, Seattle.
This is in Seattle.
here.
Or no,
Okay,
sorry,
okay,
this is
okay,
in
yeah.
Xinjiang. So
Okay,
when I first moved, and so it was
beautiful.
one of our live streams that we were doing. And
Yeah,
it
I
was,
remember.
We
Yeah.
were making lasagna all together.
Lasagna.
Yes.
I love it. Okay. Yeah.
Same group.
Belize.
with-
There we go, Josh. What's up, brother? Miss Belize, man. You got to get the app. You got to get the app if you want to date Miss Belize.
Raise Joshua's ears up.
Belize. Yeah. Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. And so this was a hot pot, actually. Speaking of hot pot, and
Hot pot. Ooh, don't tell
yeah.
my mom. Okay.
And so this was my co-founder Katrina and I when we
For
first started Siren.
Okay. That's a good picture.
And
I was like, oh, that's a great
yeah, but you
one.
see, it's also like so hairstyle very different because like I could be like short, super trendy hairstyle because you could get it cut like every 6 weeks or so before a kid, right? And once you have a kid, you're just like,
Oh, when you have a kid,
Whatever's,
yeah.
like,
yeah,
super
yeah.
simple and easy,
Well, that's what
like-
they say dad bod comes from. You have a kid, you're like, should I go and do like my big morning routine, or have cereal and watch cartoons with the kid? And you're like, all right, get the milk.
right.
Yeah.
So it was the two of us. Yep.
Okay,
Oh
beautiful.
gosh! Wow.
I mean, it's just a cool
This
picture. No, it's on your
is,
Facebook.
no, it is,
I didn't
it is.
like dig into any weird stuff. I
So
hope. Yeah.
Atina was one who would do lots of activities. And
Thai
she would organize
massage or
activities.
something? No?
We were doing just a regular massage,
Okay.
but because of they were like, oh no, take everything and put this like towel-y thing on.
Really?
So we did that.
Okay.
And so, and Judy, the one in the middle, will hate that this is actually on some kind of live stream permanent because she was like, no, we got
Oh my
that. I
gosh!
was
Sorry,
like, "Nah, it's
Judy.
okay, it's
Sorry,
okay."
Judy. Yeah.
But yeah.
This is Xiao Liu.
This is Xiao Liu
I forgot to bring it up.
Yes.
Sorry, brother, but we're having such a good chat.
So Raymond was also
Yeah,
I've been on many
Raymond,
times,
Raymond.
so the woman in front, her name is Joya, and that was Hannah's sitter, and then the one in the back was Joya's friend, and
She's having the time of her life.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
she loved it. So yeah, she's like chilling on the pedalboard,
I love
and yeah.
I gotta go. I think we've had
If you
such
can
a.
go in the summer.
We're supposed to be going this summer. We had such a slim few months, but we should be able to go. You don't spend much, right? So it should be all right.
No, I mean, I
Go
feel
down.
like
Yeah.
and forgive me, Ray, but it's like it's not like super
chillin'.
resorty, right?
It's-
But it's
yeah,
very
it's
chill.
not like happening,
and
it's chilling.
like,
Okay.
And for me, it's like the people. I think the people are really warm and they're really friendly, and they
Except
just
for
have the
aside
time.
from Ray, it's probably very nice people, right?
True.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but you know what? Ray worked on Hannah getting warm and fuzzy to him, and she saw flip flops and was like, "Those are like Uncle Ray's."
Uncle
flip-flops."
Ray.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So,
Shout out to
yeah.
Uncle Ray. We do
Yeah.
want to go this summer. My daughter loves water. We all love water. My wife actually needs a break, so
And the turtle,
take
you
'em
can
up.
swim with the turtle. Don't
yeah,
touch the turtle.
Don't
you can
touch them, or it's like $100,000 fine or something crazy.
Well,
I
so
heard.
just like, what? Don't touch the turtles, right? Like, it's like, don't
Yeah.
touch the wildlife,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah. All good.
So this is another artist friend of mine, a very
Okay.
talented ceramic artist. He's named Jeffrey Mitchell. He considers himself sort of the gay bear, right? Sort of type of like.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
sort of,
I have some friends like that for sure.
And his stuff is like, it's really disarming and like kind of clunky and very childlike, but it's like very sophisticated. And he is super smart. So it's like if
Okay.
you sort of like engage in this conversation with him, you'll be
Awesome.
like, he'll like sound really like unassuming and kind of simple, and then he'll just like, and you'll be like, yeah, like
You're like,
you
okay.
got a pretty smart head on your shoulder there. So yeah.
Josh says there's an episode where he forgot to cancel the appointment and you had to pay $200. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Sorry, he's talking about Seinfeld.
yeah, about Seinfeld. Yeah.
Seinfeld. Yeah.
So Siren
Sinatra?
won GeekWire, which is a technology magazine. We won App of the Year.
This is the Siren
so
logo,
This is
right?
Siren,
Okay,
yep. And
okay,
so
okay.
we had beat out, like, at the time, like, the Alaska Airlines and Starbucks app. And,
Yeah, I was looking at
like,
that. I'm like, what? Starbucks in the back there?
yeah,
What's going on?
like
Beautiful.
so they had like launched their app at the time, and like we beat it out. So it was like
Beat
by
Starbucks?
popular vote, right? By popular vote.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, I'm sitting there going like,
Wow.
there's no way we could win. There's no way we could win. Then they
I
like
mean, I would-
announce it, right?
Anybody would think, I'm not going to beat Starbucks. That's crazy,
Right,
right?
and you're just like,
Okay.
they just like tell all the employees to like vote or something, but we did.
Awesome.
And then I remember the rush. It's like, it was such a like adrenaline and like testosterone rush
Of
that
course,
I
of
like
course.
went up there and was like completely a different person. I was like,
Yeah. Like you just won your first UFC fight, right? Beautiful.
I
Beautiful,
think if you
beautiful.
had punched me at the time, I would have been like, didn't even feel it, right?
Let's go. Let's fucking go. Yeah.
Starbucks who?
Starbucks what? Yeah.
So this is just, I was doing a lot of artist lectures at the time, right? Because I had done, different museums that like you have an exhibition and then they would talk about the work. And so I was, And again,
cool.
the other thing is like beyond the hair, it's also like much more stylish clothing. So I don't know if you know like Comme des Garçons. So I had a friend who had collected this, but so super high-end fashion. She was like, hey, I'm getting rid of some stuff. And I was like, so like invested in like this amazing wardrobe, right? But like there was a kind of clothes that you're like,
It's like power
do I
suits
feel,
kind of thing? Okay.
well, they're like,
The equivalent, I guess.
deconstructed, yeah.
Okay,
like
the equivalent
they
of
made
that.
statements, right?
Okay,
and
sure.
some days you'd be like, I don't even know if I'm strong enough to wear the clothes, right? It's like I have to feel like mentally prepared to wear the clothes.
Gotcha.
But-
That's tough.
And then you have a kid and you're like, I don't know,
t-shirt,
this t-shirt seems clean.
jeans. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
love it. Last one. Speaking of having a kid, you've kind of got like a, you're doing your main thing way back, and then you got your girl,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So like, differences in mindset maybe with the two.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
no?
you know what though, I would say, and we may not have that much time, but it's like when she was born, I was like, I feel like a sculptor, and she's a medium that I don't know
100%.
what the properties are, but if you try to mold glass or treat glass the way you would treat wood, you're gonna break it, right? So I was like,
Sure.
my goal as an artist is to watch and understand what the medium is supposed to do and like make as few marks as possible confidently to bring out the beauty of the medium, right? And I was like,
Agreed.
I feel like as a kid, as a parent, you should do the same thing, right? So it's like make few marks, but do them confidently.
It's tough.
And if you make a mistake, it's now incorporated as part of the piece, right?
Yeah.
Like, so.
You kind of pivot and be like, well, this is what we're doing. Yeah, good.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
but it's like, I mean, I think, like when you first learn drawing, right, a lot of people, they draw like with these really like small, insecure hatches, right, and like
of
confident
course.
drawers, right, like
So I draw
illustrators, they're
still,
like,
yeah.
it's like single strokes, and they're very confident, and they're very bold, and you're like,
Okay.
you should
Yeah,
do the
you see
same,
artists
right?
that are like, and I'm like, whoa, I would have been like,
Right, so,
Awesome.
yeah, so I feel like there's a tie, right, in terms of like startups and artists and raising a kid. There's like there's definitely parallels, I feel like. So
life is crazy, right? Crazy
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. That was the last one. Yeah.
all right,
Beautiful. Let's have the last one. Speaking of that, so do you want to do the drum or you want to do the wing? Whatever you want.
I feel like I haven't done the drums the whole time, so I should just
I'll do-
stay with that, right?
Whatever you want. Whatever
Okay,
you
so
want.
this is the
Dinner time. Yeah. This is the Carolina Reaper. Yeah.
I know that having seen many of your episodes and editing them.
It's a big jump for sure.
Some people have accidentally started with this too, right? So
There was a few that accidentally started,
and I
it's
feel like at that point in time, how do you even finish the interview? And not
You
just
can't.
like-
You can. Well, I saw this one Hot Ones video where this like Chinese American chef or something. He's like, I'm gonna start with the raw, and he starts with like the hottest one, and the interview's awful because he's just like dying for the first half an hour.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. So starting with this is not wise. That's why we cut it pretty much after this, because it's pretty raw. Yeah.
So how many people actually order this one intentionally?
Oh God, no one. Sometimes people they'll watch the show and they order it, but no one finishes it. Like it's
Wait,
crazy.
how many would be a finishing it?
No one finishes one really. Like you can have one now, but I mean you would do like three. We'd do like 3 and 3 of other ones, because if people ask for 6 of this, it's just like there's no way.
It is good though.
I try to make it good, at least, right?
So what's in this one?
Carrot, onion, garlic, Carolina Reaper, a little bit of
Did you say
seasoning,
carrot? Mm-hmm. Why carrot?
just for a little bit of a base. If we just did pure Reaper, it'd be super expensive, and it'd be just like drinking fire. It's already pretty hot, right? We experimented with a bunch of different ones. And it's kind of like
How
a
do you
common
get the
sauce.
Carolina Reaper here in Taiwan?
There are a few farms. There are a few farms in Taiwan, and whatever they can grow, we just make sauce out of it. And there's one that occasionally has Carolina Reapers, and we get them from them. Yeah,
Water.
yeah, take it.
All right. So I have a tip though. with these.
Okay.
So
Let's have it.
the tip of the tongue is really sensitive to this. If you
Okay.
can somehow move it to the middle or the back of your throat without like hitting the throat,
Okay.
it's not as bad.
Okay. Is that what you're doing now? Go for it. Yeah.
I
Can
think you're
I have
right.
one more horchata? Yeah.
But
you
I
want
feel
another
like-
horchata, or you're good? Just one. Thanks, man. What's
Because
that?
most of the taste buds are around our tongue.
Yeah.
And it becomes less and less as you go on the middle of the tongue. So-
Really? Okay.
but then it would hit your roof, and that would burn up on the roof of the mouth.
Yeah.
I think.
It burns
I don't know.
anything it hits, really, but yeah.
No, because the middle of my tongue is fine.
Your tongue's fine? Your tongue's not burning? Or the end? The back of your tongue?
The outside is, but the middle is fine.
Okay. Gotcha.
So,
There
yeah.
you go. There you go. Well, put it to the test. Put your advice to the test, I guess. Yeah. There's a lot of Carolina Reaper in there. So
Yeah.
it was a big jump.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not really something that we encourage people to try, but it's just part of the show. Do something fun, right? Yeah. Yeah.
And you coughed this time, like.
I did.
you're like-
Yeah. I've had a bit of a dry throat all day for some reason.
Oh, is that
yeah.
the excuse?
Okay, no, I cough. Sometimes it goes down the wrong side. I don't know why.
Hmm.
It happens. Yeah, yeah. Good. Yeah.
But I did it.
So, but you did it. You made it all the way through the wing show.
I have to say
Appreciate
though,
it.
this is good for like if you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I have a stuffy nose or something.
Oh yeah,
It's
you
like-
won't have one after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, made it all the way to the end. Anything you want to say before we cut
No,
to the
thanks
chase
for having
here?
me
No?
on. It was really great.
Appreciate it. Thank you for coming.
And thanks for Leah for.
Oh yeah, they're
around
having
this whole
fun. They're
time.
over there hanging out. I told her, look, your job's to keep her here, play with her, have some snacks, have a good time, take whatever you want.
Having a great time.
And they're having fun, yeah. So good.
So
All good.
thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Right.
Thank you guys for watching the show.
Thanks.
Don't forget to subscribe and like the episode if you liked it, yeah. For the Chinese viewers, we do have subtitle something coming soon. It's coming. Apologize it's taking me so long, but I'm just busy. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching the show. Take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.